Welcome back to Truth Serum, everybody. Today we're diving into something that's really been blowing up online. DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. It was launched back in January of this year, 2025, and Elon Musk is leading the charge. It's supposed to be all about cutting the waste from federal spending. Seems pretty straightforward on the surface, right?
You would think so, but it's 2025 and the internet, especially on X, has been exploding with all sorts of theories about DOGE and its real motives. It's already the middle of March and things are only getting more and more intense.
Yeah, it's like a wildfire out there. You have some people saying DOGE is a deep state slayer, finally exposing that secret network of elites who are draining taxpayer dollars. Then others are worried it's a Trojan horse, maybe for Musk, maybe even for Trump, to consolidate power. And then there are those who are tying it all back to these older conspiracies like Pizzagate and the Clinton Foundation. It's pretty wild stuff.
It is. What I find really fascinating is how DOGE seems to be tapping into this distrust that a lot of people already have in the government. It's almost like it's a blank canvas and people are just projecting all their anxieties onto it.
Right, like everyone's trying to crack the code, looking for anything that confirms what they already believe. So today we're going to try to wade into these really murky waters, explore these theories that are out there, and sift through all the noise.
Exactly. We're not here to tell you what to think, but we do want to give you the information and the context you need to form your own conclusions.
So let's kick things off with that deep state slayer narrative. This theory basically paints DOGE as this righteous force that's finally shining a light on this shadowy cabal that's been bleeding the American taxpayer dry. You see all these X posts from as early as February depicting DOGE as this wrecking ball that's aimed right at this deep state.
And this narrative is really hitting home with those folks who believe in this whole idea of an unelected elite operating behind the scenes, pulling the strings. They see DOGE as the people's champion, finally holding these powerful figures accountable. And there are all these claims that DOGE has already found billions in fraudulent payments, which just fans the flames even more.
Right, but then you have other people on X who are pushing back hard. They're saying DOGE isn't transparent at all, and that they could be manipulating data to justify cuts. They point to reports like the one from the Associated Press, the one that found 40% of terminated contracts didn't actually save any money. It really makes you wonder if this is genuine or if it's just political theater.
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Is it really about accountability or is it all just a show? You see those claims of good alongside all those accusations that there's something else going on. It's all very murky, which is why we have to look at both sides.
For sure. And speaking of murky, things get even more interesting when people start trying to tie DOGE to Pizzagate. You remember that one, right?
Yeah.
That 2016 conspiracy about the Democrats running a pedophile ring?
Oh yeah, Pizzagate. Completely debunked by law enforcement and fact checkers, but it still seems to have a life of its own online. And now you have some ex-users trying to connect DOGE's findings, especially anything about fraud in government grants, to Pizzagate. It's like they're implying there was actually something to it all along.
Yeah, it's like they're saying DOGE finding financial problems actually proves this completely discredited theory. Some are even bringing up the whole Clinton Foundation scandals and suggesting there's some connection there.
Right, but it's really important to remember Pizzagate was baseless.
Yeah.
Trying to link it to what DOGE is doing, which is about government efficiency, feels like a real stretch. It makes you wonder if it's a real connection or just people seeing what they want to see.
Confirmation bias is a powerful thing, especially online. People tend to interpret information in a way that fits their existing beliefs. We all have to be aware of that when we're trying to figure out what's real and what's not.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of things that might not be what they seem, let's talk about that Trojan horse theory that's going around. The one that says DOGE isn't really about efficiency at all, but is really a tool for Musk, and maybe even Trump, to grab more power.
So the ex-posts that are pushing this idea, they say that DOGE's savings are totally exaggerated, just a cover to get rid of programs they don't like and funnel money to their friends. It's a pretty cynical view of things, isn't it?
It is. It's all built around this idea that DOGE is being used to weaken institutions, potentially setting the stage for Trump to come back in the future. It's a very compelling narrative, especially for people who believe that Trump's loss in 2024 wasn't legitimate.
Yeah, but we also have to remember that DOGE's first congressional hearing back in February did flag some real waste, like billions in improper payments. If those findings are accurate, it suggests that DOGE is doing at least part of what it's supposed to.
That's true. It does complicate things a little, doesn't it? It's not so black and white anymore. There are valid points on both sides.
Exactly. Like with all these theories, we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. We have to weigh the evidence, look at things from different angles, and try to understand what's really motivating all of this.
Hmm.
It's messy, that's for sure. But that's what happens when you try to unravel something this complex.
Well said. And speaking of complex, let's jump into the whole globalist angle that some people are attaching to DOGE. This theory, which you mostly see on X and those web forums, claims that DOGE is actually exposing a cabal that's tied to all those global elites, Bill Gates, George Soros, that crowd.
And this theory often ties into all those anxieties that people have about things like population control or secret technology projects being funded with taxpayer dollars.
Hmm.
It just plays right into the fields of those who already believe there are these powerful, unseen forces controlling everything.
And a lot of the evidence they use is pretty flimsy. It's a lot of vague, follow the money statements and guesses about who's funding certain NGOs. But there's rarely any hard proof. A lot of people see it as just fear-mongering, not much different from QAnon.
It's a good reminder that just because you see something online doesn't mean it's true. We all need to be careful about what we believe, especially when it comes to these really sensationalized stories.
Absolutely. And for our final DOGE-related theory today, let's talk about the Clinton Foundation redux. This one claims that DOGE's investigation into old government grants will finally prove that the Clinton Foundation is corrupt. They even suggest it might be linked to scandals like Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, the hype for this one is real, especially on X. You have all these users who think this is going to be the big reveal that Pizzagate supporters always wanted. They're convinced that DOGE is going to find a trail of dirty money leading straight back to the Clintons, which would prove all their suspicions right.
But we have to remember that the Clinton Foundation has been investigated so many times already, and nothing concrete has ever been found. So while it's possible that DOGE might stumble onto something new, we should be skeptical until we see some real evidence.
Exactly. It's easy to get caught up in the idea of a big scandal, but accusations aren't evidence. We need to wait and see what actually comes out of DOGE's investigation. We have already seen how these online narratives can get twisted and manipulated.
Absolutely. So much of this comes down to who you trust, who you believe, and how you interpret the information that's out there. It's a real challenge in this digital age.
That's a great point to end this part of our deep dive on. We've covered a lot, from that deep state slayer theory to the whole Pizzagate thing and those worries about globalist agendas. But there's still more to talk about. We'll pick up right where we left off next time, so make sure to join us as we dig even deeper into the claims around DOGE.
Welcome back to Truth Serum. We're picking up right where we left off, trying to make sense of all these theories swirling around DOGE and what it's really all about. Last time, we got into that whole deep state slayer idea, the Pizzagate revival, and all those worries about globalist agendas.
Yeah, we definitely covered a lot, but there's still so much more to unpack. So let's dive into another angle that's really gaining traction online. DOGE as a Trojan horse for a potential Trump comeback.
Oh yeah, this theory has really taken hold in certain corners of the internet, especially among people who believe Trump's 2024 loss wasn't legitimate. They're seeing DOGE as less about actual efficiency and more about clearing the way for Trump to return in 2028.
It really does tap into some serious anxieties about where American politics is headed. The narrative goes like this. DOGE is using this whole efficiency thing as cover to go after programs and agencies that Trump and his supporters see as their enemies, ideologically speaking. The idea is that DOGE weakens these institutions, making it easier for Trump to rebuild the government in his image if he gets reelected.
It's a pretty clever idea, I have to admit, almost like something out of Machiavelli. But the big question is there any real evidence to back this up?
Well, the people who believe in this theory, they often point to when DOGE was launched. It happened right around the time Trump started getting really vocal about criticizing the current administration and hinting at a 2028 run. They say that's not a coincidence, that DOGE was a calculated move by Trump and his allies to set the stage for his return.
It's definitely an interesting connection. And they also highlight how some of the cuts DOGE has made have really hit those programs that were championed by the previous administration, the ones Trump was openly against when he was president. To them, this suggests that DOGE has a specific agenda and isn't really interested in just eliminating waste across the board.
It's like they're saying DOGE is a way to punish political enemies and help out friends, all while pretending to be about efficiency. But as we've said before, just because things happen around the same time doesn't mean one caused the other. Just because DOGE's actions line up with some of Trump's political goals doesn't automatically mean he's behind it all.
Exactly. There could be other explanations. Maybe DOGE really is just concerned about how efficient and effective these programs are, regardless of which administration supported them. We have to consider all the possibilities.
And let's not forget that Elon Musk is the one running DOGE, and he's not exactly known for being a Trump loyalist. Musk has his own agenda, and while he might agree with Trump on some things, he's also shown he's not afraid to challenge him and do his own thing.
That's right. Musk's involvement definitely adds another layer to all of this. It makes it much harder to say DOGE is just a Trump project. We have to consider that Musk might have a vision for DOGE that doesn't match up perfectly with what Trump wants politically.
Exactly. So while this theory is definitely interesting, we need to be really careful about jumping to conclusions just based on speculation or things that seem connected. We need to look at the evidence, understand everyone's motivations, and remember that the situation is complex.
Now, let's switch gears a bit and talk about another topic that's getting a lot of attention in relation to DOGE, the Clinton Foundation, and how interest in it seems to be coming back. It feels like that organization is always at the center of some conspiracy theory.
Doesn't it? And it seems like DOGE has accidentally breathed new life into these theories. By looking into past government grants, they've inadvertently put the Clinton Foundation back in the spotlight. And that's giving conspiracy theorists a chance to bring up all those old accusations and even come up with some new ones.
It's like DOGE stumbled onto a hornet's nest, and you can see it happening in real time on X, where people are convinced they're about to find the smoking gun that finally proves the Clinton Foundation is corrupt. They think DOGE is going to expose the Clintons and reveal their true nature.
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly these stories take off and spread online, especially in those echo chambers where people who disagree just get shut out. That human desire to be right, that confirmation bias, is so powerful. We tend to believe information that fits what we already think, whether it's true or not.
You're absolutely right. And we have to remember that the Clinton Foundation has been under a microscope for years now. There have been tons of investigations and audits, and while they may have found some minor things, nothing has ever come close to proving criminal activity or any of those crazy claims that conspiracy theorists make.
That's a really important point. Despite all the accusations, there's never been any solid proof that the Clinton Foundation is doing anything shady. Of course, DOGE might find something new, but we need to be skeptical until we see actual evidence. It's easy to get caught up in the drama of a potential scandal, but we can't forget that accusations aren't the same as evidence. Let's wait for the facts to come out before we jump to conclusions.
Before we go any further, I want to acknowledge that we're talking about some sensitive and potentially controversial stuff. It's really important to remember that we're not here to push any particular theory or agenda.
We're not here to tell you what to believe. Our goal is to give you a balanced view of the information that's out there, encourage you to think critically, and help you form your own informed opinions.
Exactly. We believe in having reasonable conversations, especially in a world where misinformation and disinformation are everywhere. We want to give you the tools you need to navigate this complicated information landscape and decide for yourselves.
Well said. Now, let's circle back to something we were discussing earlier, the deep state theory and how it relates to DOGE. It's fascinating how DOGE has become such a focal point for both the people who believe in this theory and those who don't.
It really has. For those who believe in a secret deep state controlling things behind the scenes, DOGE is like a symbol of hope, a force that's finally exposing the workings of this hidden elite. They see DOGE's efforts to uncover waste and fraud as a direct attack on the deep state's power and influence.
They see it as proof that their suspicions were right all along, that there's a powerful and corrupt network controlling the government. They point to DOGE's findings as evidence that the deep state is real and working against the people.
But those who don't believe in the deep state theory see things very differently. They argue that what DOGE is finding, while maybe showing real examples of waste and corruption, is being blown way out of proportion to feed this unfounded paranoia.
They see the whole deep state narrative as a dangerous distraction, a way to undermine trust in the government and make people suspicious of everything. They think conspiracy theorists are using DOGE to push their own agendas and make people lose faith in democracy.
It's such an interesting clash of opinions, and it really highlights how hard it is to separate truth from fiction in this information age. It really comes down to how you interpret the evidence and how much you believe the different claims that are being made.
It all boils down to critical thinking. We need to be smart about the information we consume, question everything, evaluate our sources, and consider different viewpoints before we make up our minds. It's not always easy, but it's so important in today's world.
Very well said. And that brings us to the end of part 2 of our deep dive into DOGE and the conspiracy theories that have sprung up around it. We've looked at a lot of different theories, from a potential Trump comeback to the renewed interest in the Clinton Foundation, and we've delved into the debate over the deep state. Join us next time as we wrap up our investigation and offer our final thoughts on this fascinating and complicated topic.
Welcome back to Truth Serum, everybody. We're wrapping up our deep dive into DOGE and all the wild theories surrounding it, from deep state slayers to Clinton Foundation scandals and even whispers of a Trump comeback. It's been quite a rise.
It really has. We've covered so much ground, explored a wide range of perspectives, and waded through a sea of speculation. Now it's time to take a step back, try to make sense of it all. What can we learn from all this about DOGE, about government, about how we navigate information in this day and age?
The first thing that really jumps out at me is how easily we fall into that black and white thinking, good versus evil. But DOGE, like most things, is way more nuanced than that.
I agree. It's easy to see DOGE as either this great force for good, cleaning up corruption and waste, or as this evil plan with a secret agenda. But the reality is probably somewhere in between, probably a mix of good intentions, some political gamesmanship, and maybe even a bit of personal ambition thrown in there.
Right, like DOG could be a genuine attempt to make the government more efficient, but it could also be a way for some people to gain political power. Those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive.
That's a really important point, and it highlights why we need to think critically, question everything, and resist that urge to just accept whatever story fits our existing beliefs.
It's so easy to get pulled into a good conspiracy theory. It's comforting to find a narrative that confirms all our suspicions about how the world works, but that kind of thinking can be dangerous.
We have to be careful of both the people who think DOGE is the answer to all the government's problems and the people who think it's just a big scam. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, like you said.
We've given you a lot of information, explored a bunch of claims and counterclaims, and tried to give you some context for understanding all of this. Now it's up to you, our listeners, to use that information and decide what you think.
Don't be afraid to challenge assumptions, question authority, and think for yourselves. Look at the evidence, listen to different perspectives, and form your own opinions.
That's what critical thinking is all about, right? Being able to engage with information actively, filtering out the noise, and arriving at your own understanding of things.
And at the end of the day, that's what we hope you take away from this deep dive into DOGE and all the conspiracy theories around it. The world is a messy, complicated place, and there aren't always easy answers. But by embracing critical thinking and respectful dialogue, we can start to make sense of it all.
We can start to see the world in shades of gray, understand the complexities and contradictions, and navigate all this information out there with a more critical eye.
This doesn't mean we have to give up our beliefs or values, but it does mean we need to be open to new information, challenge our own assumptions, and have productive conversations with people who see things differently.
It's about recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that there's always more to learn, and that searching for the truth is an ongoing journey. And that brings us to the end of our exploration of DOGE and the conspiracy theories it has spawned.
We hope this deep dive has been informative, made you think, maybe even entertained you a little bit. We encourage you to keep exploring these topics, dig deeper, challenge your own assumptions, and share what you learn with others.
And if there are any other topics you'd like us to tackle in the future, we're always open to suggestions. Until next time, keep those minds sharp, keep those questions coming, and keep searching for the truth. Thanks for joining us on Truth Serum.